Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm so excited here to have two of my mentors, two of my friends, two people I consider brothers of mine with me today. The double B himself, Blaine Bartlett, BlaineBartlett.com. How are you, Blaine?
I could not be better. I'm actually having a wonderful time up here on the island. I was just mentioning to Rhett where I was at, and sun is shining, the rain has stopped, and flowers are blooming.
Well, that's beautiful. It's so interesting to me because so many movies have been made about Freaky Friday, where the kid switches personalities with the mom, and I don't know what we did in the last exotic resort we were at, but I think we switched weather patterns, and so here in Southern California, we're now the new Seattle, and it seems like Whidbey Island may be the new Southern California. We are raining again today. We have more rain as of April 13th, and this year in 2023 than Seattle, and more gray days, I think, as well. So thank you very much for the Freaky Friday or Freaky Thursday, since we always meet on Thursdays. But are we blessed or what to have my other brother in the house, Rhett Power? He is the CEO, co-founder of Accountability Inc., best-selling author, as everyone knows, an extraordinary executive coach, columnist at Forbes, or developer of whatever he does, but he is an amazing soul. And that's why I love him here, because every time I see Rhett, and we've been around the world together, many different countries. Sometimes we know it, sometimes we don't, which is one of my favorite things. We would be in the middle of Barbados. It's like, hey, what are you doing here? But Rhett Powers, welcome to Office Hours.
That's good to be here, man. Blaine, David. Hey, it's a blessed day, right?
Absolutely blessed to have both of you here. And I'm going to start with the word accountability, because it's been an evolution for me. And you've built a company about accountability. So originally, when I was younger, my mom had a saying. She would say, son, quit living below the line and blame, shame, and justification. She said, you're responsible for everything in your life. And then I met all my friends at TLC, all the people who made the movie The Secret, the Blaine Bartletts and the John Asseroffs and Bob Proctors and Lee Browers of the world, all the greats. And they taught me about the law of attraction. And I added that into accountability. I not only wanted to learn lessons by being responsible, but I wanted to learn lessons by what I was attracting, the people, the places, the situations in my life. And then I went to therapy, Rhett, in my 50s. And my therapist had a real problem. I had some childhood trauma, and an awful situation as a 9-year-old. And I said, but this is okay. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, I never needed therapy because I attracted this into my life and I'm supposed to learn from it. Mm-hmm. And he took a picture of me when I was 9 and he said, how is this boy attracting that into his life at 9? Tell me how this works. He says, what you're doing is you're participating in a perception and you still need to learn the lessons. That's why I'm here to help you to process and learn. But there is a third form of accountability of what are we doing to participate in this perception? What do we do to attract it? And what are we doing to be responsible? You have taken these 3 different stages or evolutionary ideas and incorporated them into leadership accountability and corporate executive accountability. How has your evolution and understanding really impacted what you do at Accountability
Inc.? Look, I mean, that's a powerful way to start. And, I know that story and it's, it makes me kind of emotional when you talk about it because it's a powerful story. I think accountability, we often think of it in the negative, right? It has a negative connotation to it. We think, oh, I'm going to get punished. We think of it in terms of punishment. Oh, I'm accountable for that mistake. And here's the thing. I think accountability is deeper than that. I think it's a value. I think it's not about responsibility. It's more than just responsibility for your actions or for the results, right? It's more than responsibility for the the CEO being responsible for the quarterly numbers. It's really about the accountability is, I think, a deeply held value. And look, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were alarmed when I said this, and I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I think we have another pandemic going on in the world, and I think it's our leadership that is truly failing. We're failing as leaders. We're failing as business owners and leaders. And here's my proof. The average lifespan of a business is 8 years. The Fortune 500, you used to be on the Fortune 500 75 years. Now it's 11. 90% of our small business fail. 90% of our small businesses fail. You know, the Gallup research recently talked about how 50% of our managers, the people that we have lead our business, don't know what's expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have an obligation. We need to be accountable for that as leaders, because if I had a business challenge, if something was threatening my business, I'd go after it. I'd attack it. I'd attack the problem, right? I'd try to come up with a solution. But we're not acting on this information. We're not acting on fixing our leadership. We're not acting on fixing internally the messes that we're creating as leaders. And that's why I'm passionate about this, because I know we can fix these issues. These are fixable. We have fixable solutions to them. Mm-hmm. But we've got to make the effort. We've got to change within ourselves. We've got to learn. We've got to grow, and we're not doing that.
You know, I love the way that you're positioning that, Rhett. I've been working in leadership development for about 40 years, and the distinct, accountability is a state of mind, which, the law of polarity comes into play. What's the other end of that? Well, it's being a victim.
Right.
And when you're being a victim, you lack resources. You don't have the wherewithal to actually move yourself and your organization to a different level. You settle. Yeah. And the idea of, and I love what you're talking about here. We have a failure of leadership, and it is a pandemic. I'll look around the world today, and everything that we see can be fixed if we have leaders in place that know what leadership is actually about. Right. And David and I, when we wrote Compassionate Capitalism, one of the premises that I worked with in the drafting of that book was leaders cause movement. What kind of movement are we causing? And we either cause movement through blindness or we cause it through intentionality. But every leader causes movement. So in the work that you do with your clients, and this is, I really would love to, we're going to have 15 minutes here, and I can guarantee you this is not going to
have him back. We can have him back. I know where to find him.
We're going to talk again.
But in the work you do with Accountability Inc., how do you disabuse people of the notion that accountability and blame are the same thing? Because they aren't the same thing. And when you start to decouple that, you begin to open up different ways for people to think and approach what they're doing. How does your work actually facilitate that process?
It's hard.
Yes.
Very hard.
Yeah, hands in the air.
But I think, in our work, the light bulb goes on when they use our accountability management system, and they get everyone on the same page with their priorities and their objectives. Everyone in the organization is working and delivering on their commitments each week. They see that the culture. I'm in Miami this week working with a client, and they told me today. I have a saying. I attribute it to my friend Ryan Berman, but he likes to say, "You have a got your back culture, not a watch your back culture," which I absolutely love.
Yeah,
when they see that transformation happen in their businesses. Right. I don't think they believe me until they see that transformation. And that takes a couple of months of working in this system. When they see that people are acting with positive intent. But when their businesses when they begin to have a culture of transparency and teamwork and trust is a really important one. When they understand each other's superpowers and blind spots, and then they're not working in silos, then you start to see that transformation, that accountability actually makes an organization fair. It makes it able and capable to execute on the mission. You have people working together as a team. That's when you see that transformation happen. And I don't think people believe our work is going to transform their organizations like it does until they see that. Because that you don't believe that. Not many of us have worked in an organization like that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a really powerful transformation that these companies go through. And that's how we bridge that gap. I mean, I think people are a little skeptical, right? That you can turn that word from a negative into an absolute positive.
Yeah.
And the last issue I want to bring up for this session of Office Hours, because we'll have Rhett Power back again, is another interesting issue in this pandemic of leadership, and it's engagement. Probably the most outstanding poll that I see is what percentage have you've seen, Blaine, about employee engagement?
The latest Gallup numbers, 87% of the global workforce is disengaged, emotionally disengaged in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And coming from the sports world, right? I just, in my mind, have been on bad teams and players on bad teams that aren't engaged because of leadership, right? Either on the team leadership or coaching leadership. All of a sudden, it's amazing how many more injuries are causing people not to play. How many more people take themselves? It's engagement to me, whether it's your second best-selling book, The Entrepreneur's Book of Actions, that talk about, habits and exercises to be smarter and wealthier and successful, all these things, or your Power Lunch Live that I listen to all the time, probably one of the most popular LinkedIn shows that is out there, an interview show. This leadership and accountability in your book and everything is about how do we engage people with an activity they get paid for. And, it drives me nuts that people would rather be engaged watching videos for 3 seconds and scrolling through videos for 3 seconds than making money, right? Being engaged in helping people, providing value, all the things that these wonderful companies. And I think that technology is part of the problem, that it's just too easy to get your work done and get your shit done, that it doesn't take engagement anymore compared to working on the line at Ford. It took a lot of effort to get your shit done.
Right. Look, man, I ask my clients this question. It's one of the first questions I always ask them. And I love it that you just brought up sports, right? And that's your gig. And I have a sports question that I ask them. It's like, can you put your team right now up against your best competitors and win? And is your team a championship team? And if you don't know the answer, or if you say you have to think about it, or I don't know, then that means you have work to do to fix that team.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't know the answer to that question, you have work to do.
Yeah.
And you probably have an engagement problem. You have a leadership problem. You have a trust problem, and you have an accountability problem.
And it just kind of trickles down from that emotional engagement. Yeah.
One of the other things that I found, even, with people that leave my company, I see as an indicator of leadership, engagement, productivity, accountability, is that most of the people, if not all, that leave my company are the stars on the other people's team. They can't keep up, and that's a really good sign for me. I love, whether it's a good fit or not, I love to see super success from the people that weren't good enough to play on my team. No jealousy, no separation. I see it as truly an indicator that I'm doing the right things, whether it's a good fit or not. When someone leaves and like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier, I'm blowing everyone away, I'm like, good, I'm doing the right things here. Rhett, just make me one promise. As you know, these are held to 15 minutes. Please come back. We have so many other shows. I know Blaine wants you on his. He's a brother on the Marshall Goldsmith Top 100 Coaches. If you are a company out there and you want to make more money, help more people, and have more fun in the activity you get paid for, check out Rhett Power, rhettpower.com. Accountability Inc. will take you there. A great leadership consultancy firm, allowing us to be our best. Thank you. It's always good to see you, man.
Thanks, brother. And
hey, take care, my friend.
Thank you so much, Blaine. Thanks, man.
We will get connected.
Yes,
you
sir.
guys, absolutely. Legends. 2 legends. All right, we got Double B still here with me. That's Blaine Bartlett, blainebartlett.com. Sorry if it was the yellow pages. We got Double A now here. Alex Atwood in the house. He'd be right there ahead of Blaine Bartlett. And we got to get to the D's before you get to David Meltzer, founder and CEO of GravyWork, GravyWork.com. Health and wellness across the hospitality sector, an innovative company. Welcome, Alex Atwood.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you guys. I'm really excited. I love that conversation that just happened about vulnerable leadership, servant leadership, all of that. Amazing. There's a massive shift happening right now in the business environment. And as an active CEO of a software platform that is specifically a marketplace for people in the service industry, I've been connecting people for a very long time and finding ways to have every sort of level of employee be able to engage. Because ultimately, you know, if you're in the hospitality industry, it's so important how those folks that are, you know, serving you, that are at your front desk, taking your reservations, that are behind that bar, serving those drinks at that wedding, each one of those people have to bring that spirit of service. So where does that come from? Well, it comes from within. It comes from wanting to be there, right? You can't fake it in hospitality, right? And so that's the industry I've been in a long time, and I've kind of cut my teeth there. And I'm happy to be on here, and I'm really happy to have a lead in from Rhett. He has some really great stuff to say.
Well, I'm just blessed again for you on here, so it still holds up to my status of making sure I'm not the smartest one in the room. When I was with Rhett and Blaine, that was guaranteed. Now I'm still in the same position. So thank you for giving me an MBA in the day. A lot of people don't know I have a lot of really good people that work with me, as I just had mentioned, and a lot of times they'll ask me, how do you recruit your people? Well, I recruit from the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
You know, I very often, if there's a hostess or a bartender or, you know, someone there, because I can't train what I see when I'm in the hospitality space. I can't train that. I can teach skills, but there's just something that they get the repetitions of talking to people and making them feel good and adding value to this experience. And I have a difficult time teaching it. And when I see people at their best, whether it be, you know, as you've introduced into warehouses, distribution, retail, construction, as well as, of course, traditional hospitality, those characteristics, what are some of those characteristics that I am able to capture by hiring out of the hospitality industry that you've been able to transcend into warehouse workers, distribution, retail, and construction from the traditional hospitality sector?
Yeah, well, it's what I said before, right? There's a spirit to serve in that industry, right? And you know, people don't necessarily get into the hospitality as a career unless they understand that, right? Now, there's 2 elements to hospitality, at least the major components on the service level. Now, we're not talking about the corporate end of things, but we're talking about a back of the house. We're talking about a front of the house. We're talking about people that are there to serve others, right? And when you look at the service industry in general, you're talking about, you know, potentially hourly employees, sometimes part-time employees. You're talking about people that go out into the front lines. Customers aren't always so happy, and they have to leave whatever has gone on at home, and they have to show up with a smile, a genuine smile, and be able to serve and have the customer be what their, you know, primary focus is, just really trying to enliven that guest day, right? And other you know, jobs, other roles, other industries just don't have that. I mean, if you're talking about hiring developers for a tech team, you know, they don't necessarily have to have personalities that are that engaging. They have to write quality code, and they have to be able to do that well. But when you look at that industry, you're talking about people that work hours, sometimes, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours beyond what they could work. You're talking about kitchens that are seriously short-staffed. You're talking about chefs who are notoriously how could we put it? Not as politically correct as the rest of some leaders in some other industries. And so with all of those different elements, you have to have people that are resilient. You have to have people that understand that whatever is going on with them is not the focus at that point. And those type of people do really, really well. And so there's certain industries that, work similar to this. If you think about clear agents, if you've ever been to the airport and you look at people in clear, the people that do really well there, they're super engaging. They're getting people to sign up for a service. And sometimes it's by desperation. The line's too long. Hey, I need to get, right to the gate. But it takes just something for them to engage in that conversation. Right. And for people in this industry, specifically the hospitality industry, it's a notorious laggard when it comes to what's happening in terms of employee engagement, what's happening in terms of the cutting edge of things. A good friend of mine is a CEO of Modus Hotels. His name's Adam Golens. And he was brought on board because of his vulnerable style of leadership, because they understood that, okay, if we're going to engage the people that are on the front lines, dealing with them, we're not going to engage with this sort of hierarchical, I'm the boss and you wear this and you do this and you say that, because that's going to be done in a way that isn't natural. It's not going to be genuine. And no matter where you are in an organization, you want to feel heard. Right. And so that's key. So to get back to your question, why is it that you would hire from that industry? It's because you have people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get it done under high pressure circumstances, understanding that resilience is key in what they do. And they're only as good as the last thing that they've done. You can be behind you could be at a chef for a long time making amazing dishes, and suddenly you screwed up, and that is it. And you may not be remembered for that amazing souffle you made last week, right? You're only going to be remembered for the one that collapsed today because you were thinking about what was going on at home. So you get that there's a fast result in whatever it is that you do in hospitality. So when you have people that come through that sort of trial by fire, then they tend to do well in other environments that don't require that sort of heavy lift. And that's where, when you think about logistics, when you think about these other service level jobs that are out there, hospitality people usually excel. But here's the thing, they don't necessarily like those roles because the nature of them is to interact with people. If you're truly a hospitality person, you are a people person, right? You are okay with being able to service people and have and be in their world and what's going on their end. And so when you put them into a warehouse, specifically where they're being tracked and they're putting something in from here to here to here to here, they go crazy. And so in our industry, we completely, obviously 2020 wasn't the best year for hospitality. And so we had to find a way to be able to redeploy this massive amount of workers. It wasn't okay for us just to say, okay, well, find it on your own. We had to find something to do. So two things we did. Our internal team, the ethos has been treat each other like we treat our customers. Treat each other like we are truly connected and aligned. And so a good friend of mine, Keith Ferrazzi, wrote a book, Leading Without Authority. And there's something around servant leadership. There's something around vulnerability, right? That now exactly what Rhett was just saying is now the way that you lead, the way that you engage, it comes from the top. And the hierarchical system of, rigidity, you get, that's just how it goes, and profits are it, is quickly changing. With technology, people have a lot of options. People can work remote now, and it's not just remote. People can quiet quit. That's the big thing, right? They can get on their phones and just do what they do and clock in their 8 hours and do the minimum. And that doesn't happen when you have a community within your own organization. So how do you do that? So what you do is you have conversations, vulnerable conversations with your team members. You ask them things like, I was part of this, I don't know if you guys have heard of Landmark Forum, but years ago, I took the Landmark Forum, went through the entire thing, right? I went through the self-expression leadership program, went on my way to being a Landmark Forum leader in this whole deal. And there's something in the Landmark Forum that they tell you, this is how you connect with others, right? You sit down and you do this with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your boss, whatever. They say, you sit down, you ask them two simple questions. Question one is, what can you count on me for? What can you count on me for? And question two, which is a little bit more difficult and requires some vulnerability, is what can you not count on me for? Right. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have an organization that's transparent and connected, and it's always going to be a little bit difficult for a boss for an employee or somebody in that position to answer that. But when you pose it that way, you get so much feedback and insight there. But more importantly, you build a connection with the person that you're with. I took that and started to implement it into my staffing company about 10 years ago, and just started to have these massive breakthroughs with people. And it was difficult for me when they would tell me what they couldn't count on me for. Cause my first reaction, well, yeah, wait, but okay. I get it. And when you really get it, you just build this connection that just doesn't show up in the stale, empty, hierarchical, old school way of doing business. And I think where that's from, honestly, and look, it's driven the business culture for decades and decades and decades. It's driven this office speak, office jargon that only belongs in the office. You don't use it when you're out of the office, right? And it's inauthentic, right? So these days, servant leadership is where it's at. And hearing Rhett say that, and myself as an active CEO of a software company and having to be adaptable, there's really no other way to be if you want to survive in this market. So anyway, I know I've given you a bunch, but hopefully I answered your question at some point.
Oh yeah, more than answered.
More than answered it.
We got a few minutes, Blaine. What do we got?
Well, I'm struck here. Just in the riff, there was a couple of points that stood out for me, and one of them had to do with the front-facing nature of the employees. They are the company. They're the only point of contact. There's a name badge behind the desk or up on the wall or whatever, but they are the company. And what struck out for me, or what stood out for me, was a distinction that I've often made about the difference between customer loyalty and customer satisfaction. And it was the souffle mentioned here.
Yes.
The idea of satisfaction is predicated on a transaction. And Absolutely. If I do the transaction well, you're going to be satisfied. I'm not going to hit the mark in every instance. But if I'm paying attention to the quality of the relationship, and this is where it really gets into the rubber meeting the road here, the quality of the relationship, and that's an interface based on authenticity and accountability, reliability, what can you count on me for? Those sorts of things. Loyalty begins to get built, and it begins to show up in employee retention as well as customer retention. And that's, how do you, and this is the question I've got embedded in this, in the little bit of time that we've got here, in the way that you facilitate the connection between the workers that, are using the app and the employers that are seeking people to come in. How do you make sure that you've got, to the degree that it's possible, those kinds of people that are organizing around relational quality as opposed to transactional efficiency?
Community building, having training that isn't just technical, having training. So we do nonviolent communication training, NVC. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys, with Dr. Marshall Rosenberg.
Yep.
I did something at the DC Central Kitchen called Conflict in the Kitchen, how to listen. Right. So just being able to facilitate that requires discussion and transaction between the people there in that room, and they start to hear and they start to have these discussions. So the more you build that into the business, the better. And with us, we're different than other platforms where we're in Silicon Valley, making technology to connect. We do that, but we have offices, we have community gatherings, we have ways for people to really understand that we know them, we know what the nationality is of our workforce, we know the communities they live in, we support their soccer leagues, we do all sorts of interesting things like that, because that's how you break down the communication barriers, and that's how you start to engage. And another point, and I know I don't want to run late, but what else shows up here is creativity. See, that's the key. See, creativity, because when people feel like they're really heard and you're engaging and you're vulnerable, they're more likely to say possibly a creative idea or start to think more about your business or how to do things better when they're not at work, because they really care about it. Because it's not like they see, wow, our revenue is going to quadruple. They don't care so much about that unless they're in a commission position, right? What they care about is, man, I love being there. My voice is heard and what I say matters. And so, and that way I'm going to say more stuff. And isn't that what you want, especially in an adaptive environment, right? Where things just change so quickly. And you want to be able to be as competitive as possible. So the more companies that adopt this from top down, the more competitive you are, the more engaged your employees are. And ultimately, your customers are going to see that in the quality of the product or the service that you have.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that creativity and curiosity. The double A did not let us down. Alex Atwood, come back and join us for sure. CEO of GravyWork, GravyWork.com. What a great two-sided marketplace, providing value and community and keeping everybody engaged. Come back and join us, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Will do. Thanks, BB. Thanks, Dave.
Right on. BB. I love that, my
BB.
BB. All right. Well, this one's too much of a layup when we're talking about this name right here. Matthew Arce, I'm not going to comment. CEO and founder of MGA Consulting, Inc. Welcome to Office Hours, Matthew.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate the welcome back. It was fun last time, so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, you're living proof when we say, hey, come on back, that we actually mean it. And but you're doing such great work in the community that I had to have you back. And it's a critical life issue for everyone, that we live in such an affluent, opportunistic country, and the biggest cities that we have the biggest problems about maintaining and sustaining its population with the basic necessities. And Los Angeles is no different than other big cities in the United States. And you're addressing that right on with the Save LA collection, and helping to resolve and create solutions for our homeless especially. So welcome back, and give us a little bit of an idea, just to meet you where you're at. How big of a problem is this today? And, maybe give a little background on how you're addressing it.
Yeah, of course. This is one of, if not the biggest crisis in Los Angeles right now. I mean, if you're living here, you walk around and you see people on the streets, and unfortunately, it's sort of become this thing that is just accepted, or seemed like it was accepted by people in LA and overlooked, or seemed to be become an annoyance to people. And my partners and I really wanted to come up with a way to combat that, but to also help raise awareness on the issue, to let people know, no, this is not okay. This is something that we need to change. This is something that we need to be active about. So the first thing that I thought about was not only partnering with a lot of different agencies and companies, but also about fashion, right? Because fashion is something that you're wearing, you walk around, and all of a sudden you're a walking billboard. So I partnered with a historic streetwear brand here in Los Angeles called Hot Rod. We got together, the designers at MGA Consulting created the Save LA collection. So it's a series of hoodies, t-shirts, and hats that have the Save LA logo, but also a burning palm tree, which is a symbolic of what's going on in the city. Essentially, it's burning down to raise awareness. And then I partnered with a nonprofit organization called Hope the Mission. That they're incredible. They've been fighting against homelessness in Los Angeles for about 15 to 20 years. And we said, we're going to start with one project, right? We're going to revamp an old hotel that used to be a hub for prostitution and drugs right in the center of LA, in downtown Los Angeles. So we raised money to revamp this in the hotel into a shelter for homeless women and homeless children. And luckily, thankfully, we were able to raise the money to revamp the entire hotel, which will be opening having the grand opening in about a week. And it will house over 200 women and children. And the Save LA collection has been doing really well. It's been gaining a lot of attention. luckily we've had a good amount of press from a lot of different stations and some wonderful folks like you guys. So we definitely appreciate that. And I've actually been working on the second line of hoodies that are going to come out in the next month or so for spring. So we're extremely excited about it and proud of what we've accomplished so far.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, congratulations on the opening of the hotel. That is
Thank
a
you.
very significant milestone. And yeah, I've got just a quick question for you, Matthew, here, and just in terms
Sure.
of scaling. My experience with a lot of problems that we have on the planet are that people look at some of these global problems, some of these national problems, and they seem so big. They're beyond the human scale, so to speak. So it's kind of like, who am I to fix this? Who am I to do anything about this? So it continues to be a nuisance. And I guess where I'm going with this is, what was it that flipped that switch for you? That in my language here, do what I can where I am with what I have, that allowed me to begin to reach out to make the difference that I mean, this hotel is a big deal. This shelter is a big deal. What was the switch that got flipped for you?
For me, I think doing what you love is important. So marketing and creating something out of nothing and bringing brands together, all of these things really interested me. But I wanted to figure out how to use those talents to serve others, right? It's like, how can I serve? How can I be of service? And I walked outside and I saw a problem that needed solving. And I think the hotel, although it will, house over 200 women and children, like I mentioned, it in the grand scheme of things, it is, a drop in the bucket. But our plan is to show people that it's possible and you can make a change, you can make a difference. And then to recreate that, we're already looking for the next project. Okay, so what's the next thing that we're going to do that we need to raise money and build awareness, and then recreate it again and again and again. And to show people that not only if you come together, you can make a difference, but hopefully when people see that, they're inspired to also make some meaningful change on their own, however it may be, whether if it's this issue or something else. But hopefully they see the story, or they see the person wearing a hoodie and they ask the question, where did you get that hoodie? What is that? And then it begins that conversation and letting them into the story and letting that person who's wearing the hoodie tell that story for us. And hopefully that just continues on and has a life of itself.
And it's already happening, beyond for the next project. You were able to establish some great partnerships with a lot of different groups, teams, leagues, organizations. What type of relationships have you already established that's supporting this cause in Los Angeles? Give everyone an example of how people do come together. We have so many examples of separation. I love the unified, abundant, infinite relationships that seem to have evolved by doing good deeds. I always say, be kind to your future self, do good deeds. This is a classic example. I was hoping to finish up, you could share some of those partnerships that you were able to cultivate with this project.
Yeah, so at my firm, one of the things that we help our clients with is creating partnerships between them and other organizations and different sponsorships. So I had all of these contacts at major sports organizations like the LA Chargers, the LA Galaxy, different radio stations like Power 106, Mega, which is a huge Spanish station here in Los Angeles. So I already had all of these relationships. So I literally went into meetings with all of them and just pitched them on the whole idea. I was like, listen, you guys are here. This is LA Chargers, right? LA Galaxy, this is your city. This is my city. This is what we're doing. And we need you guys to come on board. We need you guys to help and back us and show your support. So they all, every single one of them supported us, donated money, were there to help us in we threw a huge fundraiser. They all showed up. So it was really heartwarming to see that not only did they talk the talk, but they walked the walk and stood by us throughout that process. So it was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, when you stand by others, others will stand by you. HotRodLA.com, CEO and founder of MGA Consulting, doing great work. Let us all know so we can promote the grand opening. We're going to support hundreds of families and children in Los Angeles. And believe it or not, everybody benefits. It also raises the property values and the safety and the healthcare. All of those things are interrelated when we give people a safe place to live. Matthew Arce, thank you for joining us. And as always, please come back and let's promote the crap out of this so more people can help more people. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are both doing amazing things, so I appreciate it. And next time I come back, I want to see you guys both in hoodies. All right?
All right, man. Send them out.
Go.
We got them. I love it. Thank you
Burning
so
home
much.
great.
Take care.
All right. Blaine, it's time. What's the takeaway for the day?
Takeaway for the day. All three of our guests today, for me, talked about the ceiling that leaders create for their organizations to thrive. And, whether it's through the notion of accountability, what does that actually mean? Just the idea of, this homelessness issue is my issue. Kind of where's the ceiling in terms of my actions? Do what I can where I am with what I have. And then, the hospitality, this is the front facing part of the business. Every business, I mean this literally, every business has a hospitality component to it. Yeah. Internally as well as externally. So the summation of this is just kind of an aphorism. I live daily, but I only die once. So what am I doing in the daily living that I'm doing? If I act as if this is my life, I'm going to start taking action in ways that I haven't before. And that can transform everything that goes on around us.
Yeah, the ambassadors of first impression. That's an absolute. For me, it's the leadership side and looking at compassionate leaderships. But this idea of pandemic of leadership was my takeaway that, we do have to focus on the coaches, the mentors, and the teachers, the leaders that are empowering others to empower others. And I'll be doing a training tomorrow of the great realization coming out of the great resignation. And the realization is that we have to raise the bar. Technology has allowed us to be extremely productive, accessible, even gracious with very little effort. But yet it's that desire that fulfills us, that passion and purpose that comes from the desire that we must be what we can be, regardless of where we are and what we're doing. Blaine Bartlett, you taught me that lesson many years ago and continue to. Check out Compassionate Capitalism. It deals with these and other issues in a very, very articulate way. BlaineBartlett.com. You can get the book there. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you next week.
Next week, I may drop in on your show tomorrow or your training tomorrow. That sounds fascinating.
I would love it. Anytime, you're welcome. It's on every single platform, so we're easy to find. Thank you, Blaine Bartlett. Thank you, all of our great guests. Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Gigi. Remember, everyone, be more interested than interesting, and this is a great place to do it here on Office Hours. Be kind to your future self. We'll see you tomorrow. Training's at 6 a.m. We are in the multi-platform training, 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We've been doing it for over 23 years, over 80,000 people registered. If you haven't registered, david@dmeltzer.com. I'll throw in a book. I'll sign it, pay for shipping and the book if you register for free Friday training. If it's free, it's we here on Office Hours. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. Have a great night. Thank you, everyone.